But I want to switch gears now and talk about your podcast to be. This, okay. Al, I thought about this. I thought you have hit on something good. This is going to be excellent. Tell us about that.
Well, I had, after talking with you back several weeks ago, and I guess it goes all the way back to that junior high school thing when that teacher said, have you ever thought about radio? But over the past few years, several people have said, you ought to do a podcast, you ought to do, suggested that. And I just never did anything with it. And then after talking with you, I decided, okay, I'm going to pursue this and just see how, I'm going to chase this rabbit, see how far it goes. And so I got to thinking about it, and I called up Mike, our friend, and talked to him and got some advice and knew what stuff I needed as far as equipment went. And then all of a sudden one day I woke up and got to thinking about Kurt Kilpatrick, a good buddy of mine down in Birmingham, and he was on drive time radio in Birmingham and had the #1 show in Birmingham for about 20, 25 years. He and Bert and Kurt were two of them. And so I called him up and started talking to him. I said, I'm thinking about doing a podcast, and I thought it'd be fun for you and I to do one together. And apparently he had a speaker on his phone was on speakerphone, and because his wife Kathy in the background said, yeah, y'all need to do that. And I heard a holler out. And so Kurt and I started talking about it, and about a week or so ago we got together, and he had written a script for our first one. It's rough. We don't want it to be scripted. You don't want to like ours is not. Ours is just strictly spontaneous discussion here, and that's what we wanted too. So we tried that, and it ended up being pretty good, and we were both pleased with it. And so we actually went to AI, or I did. I plugged in 2 older guys from the South, humorists. Love to talk about the Lord, love to talk about leadership, love to talk about people working together better and all that stuff. And I don't have it. I wish I had it in front of me. I should have done that before we got on. And I said, so give me a title for a podcast with those parameters. And it shot back something almost instantly about 2 Southern sages talk about wit, wisdom, and there's another W word they had in there. And it's a perfect title. And so that's what he and I are going to use. And we had a little stopgap in there. Monday he had hernia surgery, so we're going to have to wait a few days for him to get well. He's okay. I talked to him yesterday. He's fine. But we're going to get back on it next week and try to record our first one and just kind of see where that takes us.
I love the title. And what y'all need to do is bring in guests. I want to be on it.
Yeah.
And, and you can have topics. See, we were going to do that with several friends of mine, and we just couldn't congeal it. And so when I talked to Al McCree, and I said, Al, I would love to get some of Jeannie's folks to hear some of these wonderful folks that have, like you, that have been influenced by Jeannie, and how, we have used all the wonderful things that she taught us on the platform and as a friend. And he said, sure, and that was very kind. And that's the only way I could wrap my head around doing something like this, rather than throwing my stuff out there and say, oh, listen. But I did the same thing. I put a lot of copy into AI and just said, what title is this? And it was kind of neat. The description was fun. And, I made it my voice. That's the thing about AI. You got to be careful about. Make it yours.
Oh,
yeah. Y'all should have different topics, like old Southern beauty queens. I would like to be on that. And talk about, and just rag on people. That would be so funny. Preachers, bring in a funny preacher.
Oh, yeah.
We've had so many hilarious, and you, my goodness, you are so involved in your church in Columbia, and there's so much church humor. Do a whole thing on church humor. There's just a bevy of funny stories will go along with that. I'm speaking to a pastor's group coming up next week. And I went through all my Sirius XM stuff or any of my comedy stuff and tried to find any preacher humor. And because they'll love that, because they want to always make fun of themselves, and they love to hear that kind of humor. So, I love this idea, Al. I love it. I can't wait for you to launch it. And Mike is good. Mike's a good man.
One thing you can use with those pastors, that every one of them, if they're in any size church at all, they know this stuff goes on behind the scenes with staff, and that if the average church member knew, they'd probably quit and go somewhere else, because it's church staff members are no different than people in any other business, other than the fact that they're all Christians, but there are businesses that full of Christians that still have all the challenges that any business has. So I talk about it when I do anything around preachers or folks involved with church about how I've been working behind the scenes in church for a long time, and sometimes it's kind of ugly. It's not as it's not as always as holy as we'd like to think it is. And I said, but even though I know all the junk that goes on, it's kind of like hot dogs. I know how a hot dog's made, but I'm still gonna eat them. And I know all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes in churches, but I'm still going to church because I'm not going for those people. I'm going for the Lord. And
absolutely,
so your preachers would love some reference to something like that because they get a chuckle out of it.